mental stimulation, if you ask me.
I think he was warming up. He has a very good, impressive presentation to do. So I'm glad. I'm glad to see you, Freddie. How many years now?
I'm old enough.
No. How many years since we last met?
Oh, no, it's been 4 years. 4 years, Rodrigo.
Four quellies.
Wow.
Yeah. 4. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
4.
4.
and you're really doing impressive work with your farmers.
Thank you so much.
I've seen what you've been posting.
Thank you so much.
Actually, that's what guided me to call you for this chat, because I know you've been doing a lot.
Yeah.
And it's impressive, by the way. It's impressive. Very, very impressive.
Thank you so much.
The floor is yours now.
Do you want to be entertained?
After such an interesting entrance, maybe we give you time. You maybe do introductions to the founder. Me personally, I know you. Maybe she can also get to know you.
Hi, Freddie.
Hi.
Good. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure too.
I would love to know more about you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rodrick. It's an honor. Thank you for having me this evening.
Welcome.
My name is Fred Wambua from Kitui County. I don't know whether you know Kitui County.
First, yes.
You have heard of it?
I have been there.
Oh.
Yeah, on my way to the to Tana River. I have to pass there, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
So
I have been there.
I have a background in agricultural economics and resource management. And currently, I support farmers through agronomy advice and climate smart adaptation measures passionately. So that's how we have been able to connect with Rodrick.
True.
Yeah. Really.
So I'm really yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you, and of course you're very well equipped. I like that. Do you operate with farmers from Kitui?
Yeah. But not really limited in Kitui County. But it's just because through social media, I'm able to connect with farmers from even other areas.
Okay. And generally, what type of farmers do you engage in? Like small scale, large scale, horticulture, animal food production?
First, I started as a learning experience where I would visit even large scale farmers just to try to learn their activities, their challenges, maybe, and try to brainstorm on how on several available sustainable solutions to some of their challenges. And before I started to commercialize. Normally, basically in Kitui, we have farmers in the mango valley chain, horticulture, and poultry farming.
Hello. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, but I see Cindy has joined us. Cindy? Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Cindy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. So my name is Cindy.
Yes.
Yes, but I prefer going by Achiengolo. Yes, so I'm in the medical field. My specialty is reproductive health. And then I veered off from that. I went into geriatrics. So I take care of older people. And I'm also an agriculturalist. I farm in Ngong. I've got a farm in Kajiado North, and Ngong, Kibiko Ngong. So in Kajiado, what I do is poultry farming. I hatch, and I've got about 6,000 chicken that I keep, and dairy animals for milk. Yes.
Brilliant and very impressive, I have to say. Could I ask about the farm in Kajiado? Have you ever tried doing some aquaculture there?
We are doing hydroponics. It's a MasterCard funded and KCB hosted, what can I say, type of project. Yes. Where we've got greenhouses. We farm on pumice stone. It's soilless. Yes. And we don't use fertilizer. So we use food grade nutrients in place of fertilizer. So no aquaculture, not necessarily water, but it's pumice, soilless, and we use food grade nutrients.
Great, great. I think those are very smart technologies that are changing the agricultural sector. So keep up the good job.
Thank you.
I'm getting messages. Some of the guys have problems connecting, but I've given them way forward. I've given them how to get the link. Some didn't know they had the link in their emails. So I believe in the next like 10 minutes we can start. But let us give them more time so that they can join.
All right.
Maybe you could tell us, Olo, why did you veer from medical to agriculture? What moved you? What passion? Is it you saw there's a need, or is it that the nutrition that that
agriculture? I think agriculture has always been in me. It's only that without proper direction, I chose another route, but agriculture managed to find me anyway. So, but at the same time, we have a farm. We have a farm in Kajiado. So there was a gap in terms of who was going to take care of the farm. And I thought to myself, the revenue that's generated on that farm would be much more than I get from the medical field. So that's why I went there, and I think I've stuck there. But I'm slowly finding my way back to the medical field again.
Okay. Brilliant. Can you see a correlation between the medical field and the agricultural field?
Yes, so I think I've established an organization. It's called AgriMed. There's a nexus between agriculture and medicine. Indeed. In terms of agriculture that provides medicine, and then without health, you cannot be productive for agriculture. So there's a nexus in there between that I'm trying to understand and establish an organization around.
Brilliant. Well, good luck with that, and all the best. I'm not moderating this talk. I think Roderick, you are. So let me get mute.
Went mute.
Sorry, I'm saying I'm going to mute now so that you moderate the show.
Okay, let us wait. Let us wait. Jemima has reached out. Orton has reached out. So once they have joined, we'll wait up to 6:10. Then now we begin because we'll already have had the speakers. You see, one has joined.
Good. Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is Isaac. Sorry, I'm unable to use my camera for now. That is something that I'm sorting out.
Okay. Yes, who's speaking?
This is Isaac Mongare.
Isaac, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. How are you? How is everyone?
Good.
We're good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I'm good. I'm happy that we've reached this time. It is actually the webinar that I was looking forward to. I was looking forward to learning more about the current food situation, more especially in Africa and also in Kenya in particular. Sorry for not introducing myself. I am the head of education programs at the Integrated Center for Sustainable Development. And actually what I can say is that sustainable development always has a part to play in improving the quality of life and livelihoods of people all around the world. So it's something that I'm looking forward to interacting with, and Well, and also learning more lessons, more especially when it comes to responding to the improvement of lives and livelihoods of the people. Thank you very much.
Welcome. I've also seen Jemima. Jemima?
Hi.
I kindly greet the people and
Yeah.
maybe do an introduction.
Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Jemima Magak. So, yeah, I know Rodrigue and Fred from Moy University. So then I'm really grateful to be here. I just graduated from my master's in University of Hohenheim. And yeah, this is something I am really passionate about. I'm passionate about food security. So I'm really glad to be here and see how we can learn from each other about the topic. So thank you. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. I'm also looking forward to your contribution and to your presentation. I know it will be powerful. I know I know of your qualities, of your expertise, and truly it will be an excellent presentation. Okay, I've also seen Otton. Otton, can you hear me?
Yes, I can get to it.
Yes. Are you able to turn on your camera?
Okay, sorry guys, just a moment.
Okay. So Otton, you can do an introduction.
Okay, good evening. Thanks for the invite. My name is Oron Amimo, and I'm an agribusiness technical trainer at Masai Mara University. The topic we're going to handle today is something very sensitive that affects all of us at the moment. I'm looking forward to an interactive session and looking forward to the contribution of everyone in the team. Thank you.
Welcome, Otton. I believe we still have about 3 minutes before we can kick off this session. So let us wait. At the elapse of the third minute, we can start. Now it's 2 minutes to 6:10. Then we begin. Sawa sawa, is it okay? Sawa.
Okay.
Brilliant. Maybe as we wait, maybe Jemima can tell us about her passion in agribusiness, why she chose agriculture, what value she sees it contributing, to the society, sorry, at large. Yes. Welcome, Jemima.
Thank you very much. So I think for me, what I was more interested is because I grew up in a farm. So I used to live like in Cheverin. So it's like in the western part of China. And I pretty much grew up in the farm where my parents like raised that to be able to help them in farm work and all that. So then I think that's where my interest started. I didn't really notice it until I think when I was in high school. So then I really scored very well in agriculture and I was like, okay, this is something really interesting. But then besides that part, you also see how people really suffer. I don't like seeing people on the streets or like people fending for food or like people in the northeastern part dying because they can't really afford food. But if you look at the statistics and data, you also notice like there's enough food to feed everyone all over the world. The problem is usually in the how food moves from one place to the other. So I think if we come together and just try and figure out how this can be able to like, because there is a lot of food wastage that occurs. So these particular things are the ones which give me a drive to keep on trying to ensure there's food security, because I believe everywhere there's enough food. It's just there's a lot of wastage or there's just something that's lacking in the systems or in our systems, like in developing countries, that we really need to look into and just bring to light for our governments to really see and ensure like these things they talk about, like when it comes to policies, that they are also implemented. Otherwise, then we can't really attain our goals. So my main goal is just to ensure like everyone is able to get some food on their table at least every single day. So that's something I'm really driving towards. Yeah. Did I hear every question? I hope.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So I would like to kickstart it.
Yeah.
So welcome all of you. We are going to have a webinar, and we are going to discuss food inflation and how it's endangering the global food security. Currently, you know, the ongoing war has taken a toll on the supply chains, global supply chains, and every nation can say with no doubt that they are feeling the pinch, either on their supply chains, their economies, their basic commodities prices, and everything else. So in Kenya, too, the rising prices of basic commodities have left most citizens wondering what's going on. Kenyans' average annual per capita income is 5,270 US dollars. With food inflation, citizens lose even this limited purchasing power. The same money buys less. Wages and salaries do not go up fast enough. So today we are going to discuss the topic, and the topic is being powered by the Integrated Center for Sustainable Systems. We are going to engage in an engrossing discussion whereby our insights can be shared so that we see how best this problem can be solved. To start with, Achieng will take us through it, and we shall see how we go on. The floor is yours, Achieng. Turn on your microphone.
I was saying before I discuss the topic, I wanted to ask, there's somewhere where I read how much of us blaming Russia and Ukraine and the war is true to the fact that there is food inflation versus us blaming our governments and ourselves. To what extent do we blame Russia and Ukraine? Because Russia and Ukraine only produce wheat, there's fertilizers because of natural gas, and maybe corn, but not to a larger extent. And these foods are not necessarily consumed by a majority. Of course, wheat is major, but corn, we've got other producers like India, we've got other producers like the US, and the war is not in US, the war is not in India. So why don't we look at what solutions can be provided as opposed to focusing so much on Russia and India and Ukraine?
Thank you for that observation. I believe that will be handled at the point Otton will be taking us through the courses, both globally and regionally. Then Jemima will be handling solutions. So I believe your questions will be covered in the later stages of the conversation. I used that as an example because this is our second webinar, and it's a follow-up of our first webinar of which I shared. So I believe I've answered you, and the floor is yours to begin this conversation. Thank you.
All right, so I chose to look at it in terms of first, the definition of inflation, which is basically a rise in the prices of commodities. That is according to the IMF. So in every country, there is the central bank. Central bank is normally in charge of regulating prices of commodities within a country. So if there's a rise in the prices of a commodity, then central bank, I think they're called physical and monetary policies that they are instituted to be able to cushion the countries against inflation. And food inflation is one of the inflations that could rise, but only focuses on food, as opposed to inflation generally focuses on all other areas. So in Kenya today, in July, inflation was projected to be at 8.1%. It is up from 7.9% in June. And that basically means your 8.1, the difference is about 1.2 No, 0.2. 0.2. So you're 0.2% less to afford what you could afford in June to afford it in July. So can someone carry on kidogo? I'm a little bit confused in my thoughts. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, you can.
Please carry on. I think I'm losing my train of thought, so I'm a little bit confused. Just
Roderick,
Achie, come again.
yes.
she has requested for someone to carry on. She needs to reorganize herself.
Okay. Otton, can you take over? Take us
Yes.
through the introductory part.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, guys. As I said, I'm Otton Amimo. I am not able to share my screen. There is a PowerPoint presentation I had made, but I'm using my phone presentation. So maybe later on I'll share it in the group for you just to have an overview of what I'm going to discuss. As you are well aware, we are coming out from the pandemic, and immediately after that, we got into the Ukraine-Russian war that affected everyone globally in terms of logistics, in terms of food prices, and now it has narrowed down to food inflation on specific products that we use to measure what food inflation is. Globally, the SI unit, as I might call them, for measuring food inflation are 5 products. We have meat, sugar, dairy products, vegetable oils, and cereals. These are the basic daily consumptions of ordinary people who live on a daily budget of around $1 to $2 a day. So, in a setup whereby there is an increase in prices of these 5 basic commodities, we define that as an increase in food inflation. And it's at the moment, food inflation has affected the entire world. There is no part of the world that hasn't been affected by it. And I'll start by looking at the numbers. In 2021, based on the statistics of the World Bank and Food Agriculture Organization, the percentage of food inflation index was at 159.4%. This is the highest it has ever gotten from the year 1988. Remember, these people have been tracking these things using a 4-year cycle on the 5 basic commodities. So from 1988 up to date, it has never gotten to a global high of 159.4%. That includes edible oils, sugar, dairy, and cereals. At the moment, food price index is up by 55.2%. I have a chart here. I'll share it on the group as well so that you guys can have a look at it. It's a statistical linear chart. And if you look at the chart, let's say I can call it a sigmoid curve. And at the moment, you are at the tip of the S, where we are at almost 160%. We're almost getting to the 160% mark. If you look at it in terms of the causes, the major cause that we are all aware of is the Ukraine-Russian war, which has led to the increase in demand for certain products that these countries are the leading producers of. We're talking about wheat, barley, maize, raspberry, sunflower powder, and products. Remember, a product like sunflower is used to make so many products. We're talking about cooking oil, we're talking about animal feeds, we're talking about cosmetics, we're talking about byproducts such as things like skincare sometimes rely on sunflower seeds to be produced. We also have the surge in oil prices. In as much as Africa as a continent, we have so many oil reserves, but we have not been able to utilize it so effectively. And the leading producer of oil in the world is still Asia at large. And the Ukraine-Russian war really affected logistics in terms of the amount of time and the cost people had to use to transport refined oil from those countries to this country. Remember, a month ago, Biden released a speech about the marginalization of the global logistic firms that transport commodities across the ocean. And basically, these people agreed. They sat down. They agreed on unit standardized price to tax producers on how much they are going to charge you to transport your goods. Once they had merged up, they raised the prices. So the supply didn't have a lot of options. You either use them or you had to find alternative means, meaning that your goods had to delay to get to the consumers. And remember, as based by the law of demand and supply, a delay in supply will always naturally lead to an increase in demand and increase in the price of the commodities. Number two, we're talking about climate change. In terms of climate change, we're referring to adverse droughts experienced in Northern Africa. We're talking about adverse hurricanes and tornadoes experienced in the US. We're talking about Afghanistan also experienced severe droughts at the beginning of the year, which affected the volume of what is produced globally in terms of foods that reach the market. When you go back to the Russian-Ukraine war, remember Russia is also a leading producer of oil, and we need nitrogen gas to manufacture fertilizers. So when oil prices rise, we also have to see a rise in the cost of nitrogen gas, which is used to manufacture fertilizer, eventually leading to an increase in cost of fertilizers. We also have the pandemic that really messed up everyone around the world. And up to date, some of the production companies were put out of business, and we are not sure whether they'll ever come back. Remember, I don't know if it was in January or in February, where KFC had an issue of their potato supplies in Kenya, simply because they had logistical issues. So these are some of the basic things that we're looking at globally as to the causes of food inflation. Now, I was supposed to address global solutions, but I was told someone else is going to take it. If there will be no one, I'll take you through. Now, we go back to our country, Kenya, our beloved country. You hear people complaining about unga, you hear people complaining about cooking oil, you hear people complaining about milk, bread, and you're wondering what is the cause of all this. Yes, we might be right to blame it on the pandemic, we might be right to blame it on the Russian-Ukraine war, but primarily, by the end of the day, each country is responsible for the production of its own food. We have to look within our economy. What is the problem that is causing us to not have food in Turkana, or have food in Turkana that is much more expensive than buying food in Nairobi? Or why the cost of bread in 2021 was 55 shillings or 50 shillings, but now in 2022 in August it is around 67 shillings? What are the causes of these factors? And if you look at Kenya, in the month of June, our food inflation rate rose to 13.8%. Before the Jubilee administration government got in power, the food inflation rate in Kenya was 6%. That was in 2013. When they got back into power in 2017, it rose to around 8.5%. Now we're talking about a record high figure of 13.8%. And with the coming election, we are probably like to see the figures rise. Looking at the causes of this, the number one current factor which everyone will be affected by and is well aware of is the general elections. How does the general election lead to food inflation rate? Remember, the structure of the politics and nature of politics in Kenya is based on handout to the local mwananchi. We have politicians handing out and distributing money in an economy where it is not produced. We have some positions like political post, you find an MCA using to a figure of 15 million for campaigns. Remember, this 15 million, it was either go through embezzlement or bribery or misappropriation, and is being returned back to the economy without producing anything or without purchasing anything. Basically, the money has no purchasing power. You're just given to spend. Number two, corruptions and diversion of funds. As we are well aware, we are living in a country that is the second leading in corruption in Africa. But despite corruption being a challenge, we need to narrow down to how corruption affects food inflation. You guys are aware of the subsidy that was provided for maize production the other month. The government provided subsidy, and then later on, the government came to realize that the subsidy they provided, the money was diverted to other things. The money was technically misappropriated, even in terms of the fuel in terms of what I say, fuel subsidy that the government provided. The money was well diverted as well, leading for the producers to have to cater for the cost of production and expending it on the local mananchi, because there's no way you can produce a commodity and sell it at a lower price in the name of the government is going to give you subsidies. Number three, if we compare our currencies against other currencies around the world globally that we trade with, remember Kenya is an exporter of so many products. We have avocados, we have coffee, we have tea, we have flowers. You can imagine a scenario whereby Ethiopia, a very small country, has a larger bargaining power compared to us because of their high currency value. At the moment, $1 is equal to 112 Kenya shillings, meaning someone in Europe or a trader in China can be able to buy so many bulk products from Africa and Kenya and resell it at a higher price in the market. We have scenarios whereby producers in the global market buy commodities in Kenya, they go and repackage it and bring it back to Kenya in smaller quantities, rebranded without any value addition, but simply because they have the high bargaining power, they're able to do that. On my third point, the taxation system in this country is so exorbitant. Remember, the cost of fertilizer at the moment before the government taxes it is around 2,500 shillings. Once the taxes have been added to the fertilizer, a 50 kg bag of fertilizer, the cost spikes up all the way to 6,500 shillings. Remember, as a farmer, you need fertilizer to produce. So when the farmer goes to the aggregate, he buys a fertilizer at 6,500 shillings. Only on the higher end, you as the producer or the retailer in the aggregate, you are also tasked by KRA to add VAT on the fertilizer that you're selling on your shop. So from 6,500, you get it that it goes for 6,800. This guy in the aggregate is going to submit a VAT back to the KRA. When he's buying it from the supplier also has to add another VAT. So on a normal day, when the fertilizers get to the port or the fertilizers come from Israel, they come at a cost of around 1,800 shillings. Then the government taxes it before giving it to the wholesalers. The wholesalers, upon receiving the fertilizers, they have to tax it before giving it to the retailers. The retailers, before giving it to the normal mananchi, it also has to tax it. So we have so much taxes that are being impounded on agricultural commodities, and there are bottlenecks that seriously need to be looked at. When you look at something like sugar has been able to have a stable price because of the few taxes that it has. For a very long time, the cost of sugar has ranged from 100 to 200 shillings. It has never spiked up to 300, nor has it ever gone down because of the stability of the taxes that are in it. And then number 4, which is a very common concept, monopolization of the market in Kenya. As we speak at the moment, there is one giant in the field of dairy production that produces almost all the milk that you consume, and that is Brookside. Brookside monopolize milk production to an extent that if you don't have a dairy cooperative as a farmer in your area, you are unable of selling milk directly to the market. In fact, the milk is termed as illegal milk. As we speak, Brookside produces around 56% of the milk that we consume. That's why products like Lato milk that was coming across from the border in Uganda, they are forced out of the market by the government so that Brookside can still maintain the monopoly. So technically, we are looking at some restrictions as well that have been put in place to make it hard for new competitors or very competitive competitors to come into the food market. Remember, at the moment, what has really made the cost of unga to go down is the government's acquisition of raw maize from Tanzania. Before the subsidies were provided, a packet of unga in Tanzania was going for Kenya shillings, around 40 shillings. That is a 2 kg packet of unga. Meanwhile, you are purchasing it at a cost of 200 shillings. There are private millers who approach Tanzanian producers, maize producers. But the government had restrictions in the border, so they couldn't pass the maize across until the government had to go and intervene for them to be the sole suppliers of those maize produced in Tanzania all the way to Kenya. With that, I'm done with my courses globally and courses locally. I have the solutions. If someone wants to handle them, I'll handle them later on. Otherwise, thank you guys. If there's any question or someone wants to add something, I might have left something out. You guys are all welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Otton. I give the floor to anybody who has something to add over the topic before we take on questions on the causes of food inflation, both globally and regionally. Anybody who has something to add, the floor is yours. There being nobody to add anything, let us take questions over that. Who has any question over the topic? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Roderick.
Yes, you're getting ready.
Yes. So, is there anybody with any question to rebuttal what Otton has said?
I had a question in regards to his presentation, and I know he has highlighted more on policy issues and things like, governmental influence. But I was wondering, are there factors that are farmer-centered that that push food inflation? I was wondering because I had things like, middlemen, is it stock? Yeah, stock. I think I think they're called stock brokers. Sorry, rather the brokers that are between the farmers. Do they, cause this food inflation? And yes, can we hear more farmer-centered causes? Thank you.
Otton, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. When you look at a farmer, a daily farmer in Kenya, who produces his or her maize and sells to the market, some of the things that might drive him to increase the price of this commodity are things like high cost of production, number one. We're looking at farming inputs. Number two, we're looking at inaccessibility to markets in terms of distance and time as well, which will make them spend more money to get their commodities to the market. Number three, we're looking at things like lack of formal structures or SAP, or lack of information on the farmer on his end towards the market, whereby you'll find a farmer. You guys are aware of the way Kitui produces mangoes bulkly at some times in the year. And during these periods, you might find in Nairobi, not very far from Kitui, a piece of mango goes for a cost of around 20 shillings. But when you go to the farm gate, you'll find the farmers selling their products at a cost of 3 shillings or 5 shillings. Now, what happens if this farmer decides to stop selling at the farm gate at 3 shillings or 5 shillings? Yes, he might risk the chance, or he might have the risk of his products going stale or rotting in the farm, or he might have the risk of not finding the market. But as you're all are aware, the structure of the common farmer in Kenya is so constricted to production and consumption to an extent that the farmers want to consume their produce as fast as possible in terms of the revenue. Very few farmers are patient with their products in the field to generate the more income. If you look at the structure of farmers in Kenya, you'll find most of them, technically most of the farmers in Kenya that we have are always either retired teachers. It's very hard to find young people getting into farming, or middle-aged people being involved in farming. And to an extent, sometimes these old-age people, most of them are always women or old women. The men rarely get involved in daily activities in the farm. So you find this person has so much baggage at his or her disposal that the first thing they think about when they harvest their produce is, how much am I going to get out of this? Yes, you might look at it in terms of the middlemen getting involved in increasing the cost of food products or leading to hikes in food inflation. But this is subjective, or it applies to specific regions. Someone who grows up in a rural setup might not really experience the power of the middleman because he's capable of buying commodities at very cheaper prices at the market. That is why most of these big companies, these major hotels and all that, prefer going to the ground to get their commodities from the farmers instead of using middlemen. If you go to a place like Kisii town, let's compare Kisii and Nairobi town. The cost of a sugar cane in Kisii town can be around 3 shillings or 5 shillings. And people, that is an urban setup. It's not like it's not an urban setup. There's a market only around 600 meters out of Kisii town. There's a very big farmers market there. And people buy products from the farmers directly at very low prices. It's only when the products get to a city like Nairobi that the prices are a bit high to cater for things like transportation cost and to cater for things like logistics. Now, someone who produces in Nairobi, let's say you're producing, you have your milling company in Nairobi, you're producing your own maize, you have your own small industry. You may not be subjected to middlemen as such, but you'll still find the cost of production in Nairobi to be quite higher than the cost of production in semi-urban areas. We might also want to look at it in terms of the bargaining power of this basic farmer in the rural setup. Very few are in cooperatives, very few are in circles, very few do things in group. Most of them rely on traditional farming methods, the ones that they inherited from their grandfather and great grandfathers. So the quantity of what they are going to produce and the quality of what they're going to produce will be relatively low compared to someone who is more informed, or someone who is able to access these seminars, these workshops, and support from the government. Yeah. And then another point to note, remember, we are now living in the devolution era. The county government have programs that are ongoing every day on a daily basis on the ground. They have training programs that farmers can take advantage of. But you'll find very few farmers know about these things, or the people that are in charge of these projects don't have the skills that are needed to execute these things. An example of, if I may mention, there's a program called ACDC program. Kenya Climatic Smart was running the program in all the 47 counties in Kenya. But in some setups, they withdrew from other counties because they didn't have the quorum. They had the funds, but there are no farmers to come and access these funds. So you tell me a setup like that, if that farmer produces food, he'll have no option but to charge higher, because you'll find in a setup whereby you're supposed to have a scale of 100 farmers working on 10 acres. The ratio might be reduced as low as 2 farmers per even 10 acres in a rural setup. So these are some of the farmer-based issues that are leading to an increase in food inflation in Kenya. I can give my colleagues a chance to add on. And then also on value addition. Remember, value addition is now a very robust concept in Kenya. This also increases the cost of food in our country, because you have to cater for the technology that you're using to add value to your products. Thank you.
Okay, to add on that, I'd also say that one of the causes whereby we have food insecurity is that most of the farmers do not have the right techniques to farm. We need to carry out more trainings on our farmers so that they could know the right techniques of how to do farming, especially in the modern world. Currently, farmers are still relying on the old techniques to do farming in the changing climate era. Now, the seasons have changed. Rain is upon us on awkward occasions. The seasons are not like they used to be. So we need to invest more on weather forecasting techniques to help our farmers to better prepare their lands and also prepare their soils. I like what Yara Fertilizer is doing with their Yara weather. It works. I've seen farmers in the field using it, but we need to have more technology on that, because not all areas can access internet. So we need to look at other ways of ensuring the farmer deep in the rural areas get to identify with this technology, especially on the weather. Our weather is changing, and you find that we cannot get the right yields as we used to have. Our farms are becoming unfertile, and we need to invest on soil testing to refine our farms, to know how best to make them fertile and also to maintain them. Secondly, I would also say that we need to invest in mechanization. We need to invest in mechanization so that we could increase, we could bring more land into farming, because currently farmers, like in areas where they used to do coffee farming around Thika, they have resorted into changing their farms to real estate. So that reduces our food reserves, and eventually it contributes to food insecurity. Is there any other question before we proceed? Any question?
Roderick.
Yes.
Sorry, mine is not a question, but then what Autumn talked about, And just thinking about it is just like a highlight or something, because sometimes we also talk about like, oh, farmers are having like difficulty in accessing markets and all that. But then if you look at large scale producers, some of them, if you dig deep, then you realize they have these hoarding behaviors, right? So then they are able to, if they know like, okay, at this point there will be higher prices in the market and stuff like that, then they are able to like withhold it, especially people who have like very good storage facilities. Then they end up like taking part of their production and storing them for like a later stage when they need to make like more profit at that moment. So then that can also bring like a hike in prices at some point. So sometimes it's not entirely like people who are like farmers are not aware. If you go for the large scale farmers, some of them do that a lot in developing countries. Yeah, that's all.
That is impressive. Thank you, Jemima, for that. I hope you will give us a better view in it when you will be tackling the problems with the marketing systems, because I believe marketing systems affect the food chain and the supply chains of our agricultural value chain. I hope you prepared something on that. I really want to listen to that since you've introduced it. And marketing is a big issue, because you find that we cannot get to encourage our farmers to plant a certain crop, yet they don't have where they'll sell it. So thank you for that insight. And when you'll be tackling solutions, I hope you give us a better view into that. Belinda? Okay, I wanted to engage Belinda because she deals in mechanization in farming. So maybe she could share with us the problems farmers are facing, because I know she works with Hello Tractor, and they deal with farmers. They avail tractors for breaking the soil during planting. Maybe I thought she could share. Okay, so last chance. Is there any other question or suggestion? Okay, there being no question or suggestion, let us proceed to the solutions to solving food insecurity, which entirely will end the global food inflation. Jemima, the floor is yours. I know you'll be sharing it with Fred, so just plan well.
But I can't. I think my screen is disabled. Like I think the host should enable me to share my screen.
The host.
Yeah.
Okay, Barbara, can you assist? Hello, Barbara.
Yes, thank you. I think I'm just trying to get that option.
On the three buttons.
It's always on the three dots, and then you have to select something, I think. And there's that arrow.
You'll select the user you want to allow to share the screen.
Yeah.
Sorry, the three dots.
Then the screen sharing. Able to see it.
Yeah. Ideally for Teams, it gives the screen share. And yeah, could you try again?
Yeah, mine. It's always like in between, and it's like an arrow going up, and then it shows me like when I click it, it's like only meeting organizers and presenters can share. So that I have to be allowed. So that,
okay, yeah, okay, I've seen it. Let me just have sorry, it's in meeting options. That's done. Try again.
Oh, okay, now I can see it.
Perfect. Brilliant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you able to see anything?
Not yet.
Oh, really? Wait. I already told Roderick earlier on that my laptop crashed last week, so I'm still having trouble with it.
We can see.
Oh, you can see it?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay.
Maybe slideshow to have it on full screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Slideshare to have it on full screen.
Can you see it now? Is it better?
Not
Go to
yet.
slideshow, then share full screen.
Yeah, I think I did. Like on my side, it's just full screen.
Go to slideshow where animations is.
Yeah,
Just go
that's what I'm doing. Like on my side, it's like that. I'm on slideshow. It's full screen.
Okay. Our side is not yet.
Or double click on the first share on the first page.
The what?
Double click.
Yeah.
Yeah, Apple. Where your cursor is, double click.
And then
Double click, not right click.
okay, sorry. Oh, nothing is happening. Sorry.
Go to slideshow.
Yeah,
Just
it's
go
down
where?
here. It's just this thing. I clicked already, but I can't see why. On my side, it's already like in a slideshow. I don't know why.
Okay, just
you can continue. You'll just present. You'll just select manually.
Okay, sorry about that.
Just continue.
Okay, so thank you very much once again, and I'll just try and tackle how we can. I'll try and talk about how we can tackle food inflation. So I don't have necessarily everything, so everyone is welcome to contribute whatever you have in mind as well. So I got a what do you call it, a quote from IFPRI, where they were talking about how the world is currently facing another period of rising food prices, right, and commodity prices, and they are entirely mostly blaming it on the war between Russia and Ukraine, which of course is not the major issue because it's also something that comes after the pandemic happened. And we all know, like in developing countries, we also always have the high level of poverty, and this is from all the conflicts that usually happen or just our poor system or the government system. So they talked about how almost 3 billion people worldwide are still not able to access food at the moment. So then I'm just giving an overview. Autumn really talked so much and deeply into the topic of inflation, but then I'm just looking at how rising prices in the international markets, because then mostly we have, like, trade happens internationally. We always depend on each other. Every country, there's no country that can stay at an autarky level because then we depend on each other. There has to be a producer and somebody who is able to import or export in that case. So then these rising prices are the ones that threaten the food security, and who are affected the most, of course, it's people in the low income countries. So then we look at how these increased prices are affecting the poor people in these developing countries. So it really affects their personal income and how they're able to purchase their normal, their daily baskets of food. So this is a big problem. And we also know that it was also already sent in the group where you talk about how wages are not rising. For developing countries, we also know, like in the informal sector where you have civil servants and low-skilled workers, mostly the salaries they earn are always very constant. So they never rise. So whenever there's increase in prices, then that means their purchasing power just keep on going lower. So that's something that's always a problem when it comes to food inflation. So I had two graphs. This one was derived from IFPRI, but then it was from the IMF and also FAO. So I'm just going to look at the bar chart. That's all I'm going to concentrate on mostly, because then it was talking about staple food prices. So when you talk about staple food, of course, we know it's just the kind of food that people consume on a daily basis. So it constitutes the major part of your consumption basket, right? So then we look at how this affects in developing countries, how it affects like 3 different groups. So we have the upper middle income earners, then we have the lower middle income earners, and then we have the very low income earners. You see, like when you have inflation of prices, then you notice like the upper middle income earners, in this case, this was a study they made between the first quartile of 2020 and the second quartile of 2021. So then you see how this affected the upper middle income groups. It was just an increase of 1%. So this didn't really affect them as compared to the next group, which is the lower middle income. You see it just increased for them with like 2%. So this is just against their normal income, how they earn it. And then when you look at the low income earners, it was almost like 40% if you compare. So that's like a really massive gap. So it really shows you how people who are like earning very low wages are usually the most affected in this scenario. So it doesn't mean necessarily that in developing countries or everyone is affected. Of course, everyone gets affected, but then if you look at who gets affected more, who is more vulnerable to such shocks or crises when they happen, it's always the people who have less wages or who really earn nothing at all. The second one was just an analysis from Deloitte. They were looking at how the food inflation, how it's a concern in the low-income countries. So this is an analysis from January 2019 all the way to January 2022. So you can see, like in both like in all the four countries, we had Sri Lanka, Guinea-Bissau, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. You can see like the three, except I think Nigeria, which is a bit dropping from 2021. So there's a drop in prices. But then you realize that the three other countries, the prices keep going up in a way. So they keep on shifting. And this is still a problem until at the moment. So I think it's even higher in the recent months of 2022. So this was just to show like who are the most affected. I thought about like, of course, low income developing countries. Then we look at food import dependent countries. So of course, sometimes people would think like, oh, import dependent countries are usually only developing countries, but then it's not necessarily the case. So sometimes even in developing countries, we have countries who really depend on a lot, who export a lot. So then there are countries, I think Burundi, I'm not really sure about this, but then there are countries like Burundi who majorly rely on imports. They're not able to produce on their own. So then when prices hike in the world market, then they're usually more affected than even Kenya, because at least we have things we export. So we have things we can produce on our own. So however prices may increase, it may not affect us as much as it may affect another country, which is like maybe 80% dependent on food imports. Then we also have the poorest households and low income earners, and then of course the informal sector that I talked about, so the civil servants and all the people who work in the informal sector in general. So what are the solutions I found for the food inflation? So the first one, we'll see like correcting and preventing trade restrictions and distortions in world agricultural markets. So mostly we know trade is the one that balances prices in the world markets, obviously. So we have to, like we talked about, there's something called like you having comparative advantage and having absolute advantages, right? So then you have a country can obviously produce many products, but then there's another country which can produce slightly lesser products of the same product, I mean, but then they can produce it at a more, wait, give me a second, I think something. Yeah, another country can produce at a way or less opportunity cost, like at a lower opportunity cost than the country that can produce more. So this is why trade is really important, because then it helps like with use of using our natural resources efficiently. So when there's a lot of distortions or restrictions in trade, this is what really ends up preventing movement of food from one place to the other. And this is what causes like hiking prices, because like during COVID-19, there were border closures as well. So this, of course, that's what resulted to more rise in prices, right? And you can also see the same thing that Otton talked about with the Kenya border, the Kenya-Tanzanian border, where the borders were closed, I think, because of people purchasing maize and stuff like that. So these are the things that even increase prices higher, because then that means there's food at a particular place, but then as long as it's not available where it's really needed, then of course, in that particular country, the prices are low, but then in the country where the food is more needed, then the prices are really hiking. So trade really helps with regulating prices of food. The second one, we have strengthening the fiscal capacity to protect the purchasing power of low income or vulnerable populations. So most governments in the developing countries have really low fiscal capacity in general. So we talk about having like fiscal policies where we have like these measures which are employed by government. So if the government is not able to allocate like maybe taxes and their expenditures on agriculture or like on supporting people who are low income earners, and then they can't really give this assistance to them when they need it at that particular moment, then of course these people have less purchasing power at that when prices hike. And as long as this remains the same, then of course people will always have a problem with food inflation. So it's really important that our governments try and strengthen the fiscal capacity, whether it's from deriving the assistance from the international world or like organizations. So I think that's something that the African Union needs to work on more. The third one is supporting or empowering small-scale farmers. It was already talked about, of course, in majority of production in Kenya or like in developing countries is usually provided by small-scale farmers because you look at these people like Otton talked about again, how they still use the traditional methods in production. They don't have really access to enough credits or like finances to be able to purchase the correct inputs or like enough inputs to produce to a certain kind of level. So I think when governments support and improve their access to this price risk management tools, here we talk about the financial services and credit. So this is something like they can create an institutional environment. By this, I know like currently or like in many groups, in Kenya, I know like there's usually these farmer groups, right, in villages or whichever places the farmers are. So then you also notice like within these farmer groups, there's really no stability or like assurance that you will get money when you really need it. So then I think when the government comes in and creates these institutions where farmers can go and access affordable credits or like these services, it would be really nice to support them in their production. So this can also be through them subsidizing inputs for them and also providing like improved seeds and ensuring like the seeds that are being sold in the market are viable seeds, not like seeds which are adulterated. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, you can hear you.
Oh yeah, I think my screen is frozen, so I was trying to go to the next one, and yeah, I have to try.
Yeah,
just double click on the second page.
Yeah, the problem is not like with me. The problem is because I told you earlier my computer crashed, so I need to take it to be made, and yeah, I couldn't do it. Like you have to follow protocol before they take it in and all that, so it was taking a lot of time.
Just continue. We are with you. We are listening.
The problem is my screen is frozen, so I can't go to the next slide. But I'll try. Just give me a second, please. Yeah, thank you.
In the meantime, Belinda. Belinda, are you around? Okay.
Yes, Roderick.
Yes, Belinda. I've been looking for you for the longest time.
I've been in this meeting, Roderick.
Okay. After Jemima finishes our presentation, I would like you to take us through mechanization and how it can help farmers improve their yields.
Fine, but I hope that will be really a short one now that I didn't prepare a whole presentation.
There is no problem because I believe you are an expert in that field and I've ambushed. So I just want you to express yourself because I know you are vast in that sector.
Okay, thank you.
Jemima,
perfect. Yeah, it's
perfect.
Okay. Thank you. So we go to the fourth solution. We talk about investment in social protection measures, right? So we have these protection measures such as cash transfer programs and pension system, employment programs, among others. So I know like mostly the African governments, we have them in place, but then they are really not functioning as much as they should function, or like they are not up to par. I remember when I did my thesis, I did like an analysis on COVID-19 effect on food and nutrition security, And there was this, what do you call it, in the the government of Kenya agricultural sector. I read, I don't know how true it was, but I read that the government was able to eliminate taxes for people who have low income. I think were earning below $250. And also at the same time, they were able to provide like free food and give cash transfers to low income earners, or like people in the slums and, you know, in the rural sector. But then again, when I went to read in the newspapers, then I could see there are a lot of people who were really complaining a lot, who were like really not able to afford food. They could sleep, they were going on for like 2 or 3 days without food. But then the government says they're providing food to everyone, but then apparently not everyone is getting access to these protection measures. So I think investing in this and ensuring like every party, that every person who has very low income and is not able to afford food when there's inflation of food prices are eligible to this, like the government should ensure like these people are all catered for at that moment. So investing in this sector will be really good. And also like having like in that particular moment, like the short-term periods when these prices hike, or like if there are any other shocks, be it climate change or like problems like during the pandemic, then maybe like the government is able, without struggling too much, to be able to offer these people food, or like boost their purchasing power by giving them money to purchase their own desired food products. Then the fifth one was efficient food reserve management. So I think almost all governments have like food reserves. But then, so we have like the buffer stocks, or like strategic and emergency reserves. So when we talk about buffer stocks, of course, I think most of us know. So when the governments, of course, they take the stocks from when they are unstable prices and then distribute them when they are higher prices in the market. So just to stabilize prices. So having these food reserves and improving how they're being managed, and how stock purchases are being released or like withheld in this stock, like in these buffers or reserves, and how they're being released, like that efficient, ensuring that they are being able to, that it's being in place, like there's enough food for that moment, and how it's being released only when it's needed, or only when such inflation measures or times occur, should be something that the government really should be looking into. And this is where I think I can also add with the hoarding behavior I was talking about, because majority of people who produce, or like producers, we have a lot of corruption. We are not going to deny that. And that's where people really do not think of the other party. So as humans, I feel like sometimes we really need to cater for each other. Because if I really compare like how we always live compared to how people in Europe live, it's more like you really want to care and like ensure somebody else doesn't sleep hungry. But I feel like in developing countries, sometimes people don't really care too much about the other person. And that's why we have a really large difference between the very rich people and the very poor people. And then you find some people going hungry and some people wasting food, and they have too much to spend. They have all they can have in stock, but other people don't really have it. But then here you realize that they have that stability. They've been able to balance it out. So then it ends up that pretty much everyone has to have food on a daily basis. So then I think if the governments really put effort into ensuring like they have these reserves to be able to cater for each and every person whenever there are shocks or like any kind of problems in the country, then it will be something that will help regulate also the inflation of prices. Expansion, the sixth one is expansion of agricultural foreign direct investment. So this is whereby like when you have investors who like, of course we have a lot of investors in Kenya. So then I think like if they're able to expand it, I think somebody talked earlier about, was it somebody or maybe I heard it somewhere else? I talked about earlier about how we have the problem of, is it, sorry, I'm losing the word. Like the government has loans, right? And we need to also repay these loans. So there's a lot of deficit when it comes to finances within the country. So I think expanding like investment in these countries will be really helpful. But the problem lies again with the government. So having like policies put into place to ensure like the investment that is being taken into the countries is being used for whatever they're being used for. I know it's something that's going to take time. It's something that, of course, it will be really difficult. But I still believe and always stand by it will happen. Whatever time it will have to happen. Because if we start these movements where we have to ensure there's clarity and there's a lot of clear, ensuring like everything that is being done is like put on a clear basis. And how do you say this word? Sorry. But then, yeah. So just ensuring that whenever there's investment, it's being withheld to the very core of it, and there's follow-ups on how it's being used and where it's being used and how it's being the profits out of it. So increasing this investment, and then it will be able to enhance like cooperation between the investor country and also the country that is being invested in. And it also improve like our infrastructure in the rural areas. We talked about people still using the old methods in farming. So I think improving the infrastructure also with the roads, not just like the technological part, will be nice. Also improving research and extension services will be really grateful, like, helpful in the sense that helping with students in the universities so that people are more educated and more aware, and they can be able to also spread this information towards the farmers, because I think there's a lot of lack of proper extension services as well in these countries. And then in general, of course, in the end, this will enhance agricultural productive capacity of developing countries. And of course, once we have like a very good productive capacity, having like problems with a lot of importation will be something that will be forgotten. Then we have improving agricultural market transparency. So of course, this deals with information. FAO have their own, I think most of the research organizations have their own databases. So IFPRI, FAO, World Bank, they have all these FAOStat and the GEOs, where they give all the information that is needed with the climate and how prices will increase or decrease, or how the inflation will occur in the markets and all that, or supply and demand. So then having like this information being given to producers on time, and ensuring that producers are not like sometimes over producing or like underproducing, so that it ensures like there's a balance. Because that's when producers always feel like if they produce more, then they produce less, because then sometimes they feel like if they produce more, then the prices will go down, and then they're not able to earn a lot from their whatever they're selling. And the same applies and vice versa. So then I think them being also informed, because in developing countries, we have a lot of smallholder farmers. Again, we talked about who are the ones who give most of the production. So as long as they're not really educated or like very informed about all this, they'll really never know. So that's when people choose to, you don't have enough funds, you don't have enough technology, or like you're not being pushed to really produce as much as you produce. You only cater for yourself sometimes. And that's usually the problem, because then if they do that, people who live in the urban centers are not able to get enough food. And that's where the problem also comes in. So I think ensuring like producers are also well informed and that they're being supported in this sense. And for the people in the rural areas who are not able to access like technological information, like through phones or whatever, this is where also, again, extension services come to play. So people like, there are people who really lack jobs in developing countries. So I think educating people and like the government providing jobs in this sector where they can use youth to go and relay this information to farmers in the rural sectors will be something that will really improve like how they get information and what they need to do, and how things are working out in the market sector. So I think I've already mentioned earlier on about the European Union and how trade works here and how they ensure like most people are able to afford food. And this is because of their common agricultural policy, which is called the CAP. And it's a really detailed it's a really detailed policy, which I really can't go into it because I also don't know everything about it. But then I really liked it because then it enables like it stabilizes prices in Europe. It's easy for people to, like, food is very cheap. However, but like they import a lot of food from other countries, but then food is still cheap because then they have these regulatory policies. And having this free trade area where you can move from country to country, goods can easily move without being checked or borders being closed. It has really been helpful to them because then it makes everything like have low prices. So however much the inflation that has occurred recently has affected like people globally, then you can also realize like if you go to particular areas in the world, they are way better, because like here, I don't think like there, of course, there are higher prices, but then it doesn't really affect people as much as I know it's affecting people in the developing countries. So when the AU talked about the free trade area, I don't know if it's already implemented, but maybe it was supposed to be implemented in 2020 or 2021. I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. So then I think it's something that they should really follow up, because having a free trade area where like the whole of Africa, we have like all the borders are open for trade to move from one country to the other, it's going to really be helpful with balancing out our prices and our commodities for consumers to be able to afford food cheaply. So then we have, this one is more on a personal level. So I just think so, because I feel like we must learn to cut our expenses and wastage. So this is something that people need to care about the other. It's like when we are talking about climate change, it's something we have to do together, and people have to start thinking as individually first and know like I have to be the one to make the change. So the United Nations Environmental Program report was reported like in 2019, where there was 1 billion tons of food that were wasted globally, and almost 17% of this edible food ended up in trash cans. And I'm very certain that during that particular time, there are people who are still sleeping and dying hungry once again. So I think this is more on a personal level. During COVID-19, there was also people like, how do I say, panic buying. So people would go to supermarkets and just buy things from the supermarket, right? But then this is a problem, because then you realize like maybe they're not really well informed about what is really happening. And I remember like for the international organizations, they relayed information properly and said that there was enough food stocks to feed the whole world at that particular moment. But now the problem is just coming from the transportation of food from wherever they're needed to, like from where they're being produced to where they're being consumed. So this was not going to be much of a problem, because the movement that was being stopped was necessarily supposed to be for people, except just for the people in the trade area or like for transportation purposes. But then just people not being well informed, and just people being just panicking and just going to supermarkets or markets and just purchasing goods, and then they go and make all these storages in their houses. But then it's really unfair when you look at people who are like the low income earners. They don't have savings, and they're not able to have that enough money to go and buy food in bulk. So during these periods, and once they don't work, they're not able to get money to be able to fend for themselves for their daily food. But the people who are like working in the formal sector, or people who are get paid regardless of whether they go to work or not, they have all the savings they can, and they are able to stay at home or work from home, and they still have all the food. They can just go to the supermarket and buy as much things as they want that could last them for the next 2 months. But this is not the case for the low income earner. So I think it should also be something that comes from a personal level for us to care for each other. Then ensuring sustainable food production systems and implementing resilient agricultural practices. This is something that's already ongoing. It's really improving, to be honest. So I wouldn't really say like, oh, we are having like very bad systems. But then of course there's still like, we are really lagging behind, because even like reaching the goals, the SDG goals for 2030, we are still a long way behind. But then I think like we are really trying with trying to produce sustainably. The only problem is still coming in where these in developing countries still have the problem with the accessing finances and credits, or like this technological accessing the technology that could help us like improve our production. So we know like sustainable food production system, like for people to be aware and ensure like they follow up, they live up to it, will help us increase our productivity, maintain our ecosystems, of course, and in the long run improve our land and soil quality. And of course, if this happens, then we are able to have more produce, especially because we have like the population keeps on growing for the future. I think we're supposed to reach maybe how many billion people in 2050. So of course we have to look at the future and how many people will need to be fed by agriculture. So the final solution I had was supporting agriculture in general. So I think the AU had this commitment to allocate 10% of their national budgets for every country to agriculture. I don't know if this is really implemented in each country, but I really doubt, because then we would be having all these problems at the moment. So I think it's something that's still having a lot of loopholes. There's still a lot of corruption. We don't really know where the money goes, or even the governments maybe are not really allocating this money to agriculture as supposed to be when they agreed with the African Union. So I think also the industrialized nations should also try and support research and innovation and try and increase their help for developing countries. And this doesn't necessarily have to be financially, because sometimes there's always complaints like, oh, we always support, but then nothing really happens. I think also just with information and just them sacrificing and trying to help out through education, or like just training people and ensuring like people like our generation, people are like way better and thinking way better in that smart agriculture kind of production will be really helpful. So also like the investments, of course, financially, that's always welcome, and this will also enable us to be able to reduce poverty in the long run, as long as everything is stabilized and trade operates perfectly as it should be. Of course, not perfectly, but operates as it should be. And then I think we'll be in a better place in the near future. So just to conclude, I feel like Africa in general, we have like a very significant potential for productivity to increase. So we can look at, there's a lot of conflict still ongoing, not maybe in Kenya, maybe we don't have it as much, but then if you look at countries such as Congo, I think Burkina Faso, so these are also things that usually hinder production in agriculture in one way or the other, or they hinder trade or whatever they do. So then reducing conflicts and also improving on our stability in our economies, transforming our policies in the agricultural sector, and also lowering taxation in the agricultural sector as well. And this could be also like stepping up how we subsidize for the farmers. I know in the EU, they subsidize the farmers a lot, and that's why they really produce efficiently. And they have really a lot of machines, because then the agricultural sector is really supported massively. But then on the other hand, for us, I think most people are in the agricultural sector, but then there's not really that much support. I think they really look down on agriculture, but then that's what feeds the nation. Without food, then we can't really even operate the economy as well. So there has to be like these policies in agriculture like reviewed, and also in the stepping up our advocacy levels, enlightening farmers, because we also know smallholder farmers, not most farmers in Kenya, at least I know, even my dad, I know like he's not learned in agriculture. I think I'm the only one who does agriculture in my family. But then they do things, I don't even know how they measure fertilizer in the farms. So sometimes maybe if they are more educated, they will really know what quantity of fertilizers to use, what quantity of seeds to use or inputs. But then they just do things based on how they were taught maybe from grandparents, and it's just something people do without really getting proper information about it. And that's what doesn't really help our productivity levels. So I feel like we still have a really big potential, because we have like a lot of resources in Africa. And if we really implement a lot of this, and plus every other thing that's out there that we can really improve on, the agricultural sector will be at a better place. And of course, things such as food inflation will be something that will be forgotten in the near future, I hope. So thank you very much. That was all I had for today.
Thank you so much, Jemima. Thank you so much, Jemima, for your presentation. I would open the floor for questions. I saw Isaac, you had raised your hand. If you have a question, kindly ask.
Okay. Thank you very much, Roderick, for convening this webinar, and I also thank you, and I also thank the presenters for the pieces of information and documents that they have presented so far. And I think what I've learned is that there are external as well as internal factors that affect the rise in food prices. Maybe to touch on, we've looked at the external bit, but looking also at the internal bit, the bit that can be controllable is that governance issues have always plagued the agricultural sector in the third world, more especially when it comes to prioritization of the needs of the people in relation to food security. I think going back, I came across literature that actually explained how Kenya responded to food security in the 1960s, and it had something to do with the the prioritization of the needs by the government and the interventions that they put in place. They really use the input of the agricultural extension officers very extensively, and their presence could be felt even at the local level. But immediately after the end of the Kenyatta administration, then the successive governments didn't put emphasis on food production and also food security. Right now, even as we are actually looking at the food situation in our country and also in the continent as a whole, we can acknowledge that at times it is our governance structure that fails to prioritize, that fails to put infrastructure that will enable food security to be realized, and also a stabilization of the food prices. I think something needs to be done, and it has to start with the approach. There must be a paradigm shift from the way we are doing things, and look at creative ways of how we are going to look at the solutions. I don't agree with what the Western policymakers are actually prioritizing now for Africa, more especially when it comes to using foreign solutions to solve local challenges. You find that they might give directives on the crops or even the machinery that you can use, but there are times that you find that the fertilizer that we use are inappropriate for ourselves, or even are inappropriate for our climate. So that is something that policy makers and also we as ICSS and also like-minded experts can also take into account. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you for your input. Any other before we take questions?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Who's speaking?
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello, we are hearing you.
Hello.
Hello, we are hearing
you. It's Fred who's speaking.
Oh, Fred.
Okay.
Fred, just go on.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
I hope you can all hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much, Roderick. I would like to start by appreciating the speakers who have come before me, Horton and Jemima. They have really talked extensively on the causes and the solutions to global food inflation. Causes like the conflict, COVID-19, and climate change. I like to say that I think climate change is the biggest challenge, because we are really experiencing unpredictable patterns of weather, and it has really posed a great threat to food security, leaving most of the farmers' livelihoods very vulnerable. So I wanted just to talk briefly on some of the solutions from the perspective of climate smart agriculture, because I think most of the solutions on policy side and COVID-19 perspective have been handled, and today has not been available to me. I don't know whether you're still hearing me.
Yes, we are.
Hello.
Yes, we are. We can.
I'm saying today has not been a very good day to me, because it started with some network hiccups and then followed with a blackout. So I'm not near my laptop. I could have done some presentation. I'm forced to use my phone on the rooftop, because we are experiencing some blackouts. So I want to say that
Hello, Fred.
You have muted your mic.
Hello, Fred.
He has disappeared.
the network. Okay, Belinda. Hello, Belinda.
Yes, Roderick.
Yes, kindly take us through mechanization. When Fred gets back, we can give him another chance. Network tatizo.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Mine will be very, very short. Of course, we have tackled most of the external factors that do affect the food systems. And there are things that we have control over, like agricultural mechanization. For example, I will just do my presentation based on Africa as a continent, and also very practical home example of Kenya. So of course we do have over 500,000 smallholder farmers across a few African countries. Those that I deal with, 13 in number. And there has been a market linkage problem. When I talk about market linkage problem here, it's majorly on, it's exclusively on mechanization. Mechanization is majorly based on the equipment that is used for land preparation in agriculture and equipment that is used throughout the production period throughout the production period in agriculture. So when I mention market linkages related to mechanization, not really produce. Yeah. And it is also true that by 2030, we will be having 500,000 more mouths to feed in Africa alone. And we have over 3 million people in the continent who are employed and who are seeking for employment, while the agricultural sector has the capacity of absorbing 70% of these unemployed youths. Yes, so it is also true that, of course, when we have food shortages or other food problems, we would want to know why do we have these food problems. And there are some preparations that have to be done. Like, for example, if land preparation is not done well, if a lot of attention is not paid in the production process, then definitely there will be low yields. And so 50% of African low yield gap is due to lack of equipment. And also we have lack of right-sized financial solutions to farmers who would want to engage in farming. So under the mechanization sector, we are looking into providing solutions that help these smallholder farmers to be able, for smallholder farmers and of course all the farmers, to be able to find right equipment in good time to curb the problems of late planting, under cultivation, and loss of income that may accrue due to lack of mechanization. And so in our sector, we have been doing various things to make sure that mechanization is covered for. The first one is we usually link farmers to tractor owners. That means that, of course, there are people who already have these equipment, but no one really takes time to connect them to farmers. And so you'll find a farmer has their farm, which has not been done for some time, and a tractor owner also has his equipment packed just at his, homestead. And so what we're really looking into is we are really looking into having technological solutions that help to link these people together, because when that is done properly, then it means that there will not be late planting, there will not be under cultivation, and there will be less loss of yields, and that hence that would lead to increase in productivity of food. Another thing that we are looking into under mechanization is that, of course, we do not have enough equipment in Africa. We do not have enough equipment in Kenya. That is, when you talk about tractors generally and the implements that are used in all the stages from planting all the way to post-harvest handling. So we are looking into curbing the problem of the financing, because of course we already have the microfinance institutions and banks already offering loans towards curbing that problem. But most of the older farmers are not people who can afford such kinds of financing. And so we are also looking into making
Hello, Belinda. Can anybody hear Belinda?
Sorry. Can you hear me, Roderick?
Yes, just continue.
Yes, thank you so much. So as I was saying, we are looking into having solutions that can be more affordable to most of the farmers, or rather most of the people who are involved in the mechanization space. Those who cannot afford to make down payments of anything beyond $5,000. Those who cannot be able to $500, sorry. Yeah, $5,000, sorry, yeah. Those who cannot be able to afford any down payments of anything beyond $5,000, those who are not able to have security in terms of title deeds or logbooks, and also those who are not able to like those who cannot be able to meet the requirements that are required by the financial institutions because of their high costs in terms of value, or rather monetary. And so we are looking into giving them solutions so that they can be able to have equipment at very low terms, and then we also give them enough time to be able to repay for such financing. Now, I don't know if this will be relevant for this now that I don't really prepare very well, but I have personally seen this impact so many people, because, for example, we are now having a program where we are allowing anyone who has farmer network to be able to own a tractor with 2 implements. Implements are things that are drawn by the tractor, whether it's a plow or a rotavator or whatever it is, yes. And we only need them to make 5% down payment as commitment. And by that, we have most of these guys who've been able to access such kind of financing, being able to attend to so many farmers around them. And of course, because it's all monitored using technology, we are able to see their progress in terms of how much work they've been able to do from time Y to time Z. And so by that, we can see that there's a lot of impact that has been made in various communities where such products have been adopted. I know I have done this very roughly, but maybe someone who has a question on mechanization, or maybe something that you'd want me to clarify better, you can bring it forward.
I think I just have a comment. I liked that presentation, and I think there's something I'm really passionate about in terms of something called crowdfunding for farmers. It's called crowd farming, you know, where you can allow farmers to, you know, it's sort of like stocks in a stock exchange for NSE capital markets, where now people buy shares of a farm in terms of their production, and so you get a return on the yield that is gotten in each and every season. Where in a company you'd have to wait for a year, so you're given your dividend or your share, you know, capital, your share profit after every year. So it could really work well for farmers where, you know, maybe they have 2 or 3 seasons and they get to plant. And this is a great investment opportunity because instead of receiving an yearly return, an investor can receive you know, a return every maybe thrice in a year or even 4 times in a year. So I think I like the solutions you're providing. And I think we could collaborate, especially in terms of, yes, bringing this farmer technology as, to the grassroots level. Sorry. Yes, thank you.
Your name, please?
My name is Barbara. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I work with ICSS.
Okay.
So I think we can link up, maybe drop your email on the chat, and we can see how we can come up with projects that will bring out this very much needed solution to farmers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, actually, our technology is already in the market, and it's already growing. Most prevalently around Western Nyanza regions and some part of Northern Kenya as well. That is locally within the country. But yeah, as you have said, we can touch base.
Brilliant, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Belinda, for your presentation. I knew you had something, and you've not disappointed us. Thank you so much. Okay, Fred, are you around? Fred? Fred, is Frederick around?
Yeah.
Yes, continue, Fred.
Hello.
Hello, we are listening. Fred? Hello, Fred.
Hello.
Yes, Fred.
I'm
Continue.
saying I just wanted to speak briefly on climate smart agriculture, so that because
please do.
You all know that that is agriculture that is focusing on trying to increase productivity sustainably, and also at the same time helping farmers adapt and build resilience, and reduce agricultural greenhouse gas emissions. Because I'm looking at it from a very basic level. Because, like, for example, where the village where I come from, when I was a little boy, now I'm a little grown. We used to really harvest. We didn't really go to the shop to buy any food, but recently these days we are experiencing up to 100% crop failure because of unpredictable onset and cessations of rainfall, which has been brought about by climate change. And I want to say that I think most of the solutions can come from the leadership and governance level, because our leaders, like, for example, we went to a certain training. We were getting trained on integrated soil fertility management by crop nutrition. I know you know them. They do soil. They provide soil fertility management solutions to smallholder farmers, and the nominations from the county government. The training was supposed to be for the youth, people less than under the age of 5 years, but the county government officers nominated even people who are above 60 years, people who are retired. And some of these technologies require really the young people who are innovative and creative to work as service providers. And so, like Roderick had said, farmers will need to invest in integrated soil fertility management, because our soils have been overutilized, and we are lacking. They are not able to support crops to really realize maximum production. So integrated soil fertility management is one of the solutions, and also integrated pest management to reduce usage of these synthetic fertilizers, and promote more manure, biological and mechanical pest control methods, so that even the food that we are producing is going to be not only nutritious but also safe for consumption. I am always inspired by the story of Israel. Israel was a desert, but they have been able to transform their country to a leading agricultural producer. And one of the reasons that has enabled them to be able to transform their country to a leading agricultural producer is through water recycling. I don't know why some of our leaders are not able to ensure that some of the technologies that are getting used, that other countries are employing to ensure they are able to feed their population, why our country, our leaders fail really to make it possible for us. And we have, in terms of arable land, we have the largest arable land compared to Israel, but in terms of production, we are behind them. So I think it's more of a leadership and governance. From that perspective, they should be able to provide some of these, ensure that these technologies really go to the smallholder farmers, because the smallholder farmer is the one who produces most of the food that we take. So I'm not going to speak really for long, because the speakers who have talked before me have really talked extensively on those, and I've also had some challenges on network and power. So I was really distracted throughout the meeting, but I was listening, and I want to really say a big thank you to Roderick for this opportunity and the chance to get to meet some of my some of my classmates, and I'm really impressed by the good work they are doing. So it's about also moving forward, how we can be able to come together to see the opportunities that we can leverage to ensure that we are deliberate about our efforts towards towards a more food secure country. And thank you so much, Roderick. I think I don't have much, and thanks.
Thank you so much. Before I proceed, I've seen Isaac has a question. Isaac, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Roderick. And actually, mine was just a reaction to what Frederick had said. And I think to some extent I agree with him, but there are things that I find to be a bit I don't know how to put it, but I'm just looking for the correct words to put. Because when we say that the nominated people are okay, when we say that the political parties rather nominate people who are over 60 to represent issues affecting the youth, and also issues that are affecting agriculture. We find that there are times that there are these people who are really experienced, well versed with knowledge, and we really need their input as well when it comes to addressing these challenges. You know, the mistake that we normally make is that sometimes some of these problems that we are facing are actually historical. Looking at how the agricultural sector has been managed from time to time, it actually tells us a lot about the priorities that government has put. You find that there are people in previous governments who worked for agricultural institutions, and they really did an exemplary job. It is up to them now to transfer the skills and knowledge to us, the youth, so that we can use it to actually further our cause for addressing food insecurity and also addressing the unusual rise in prices. So I think yes, there must be a change in approach, but at the same time we cannot really negate the input that the elderly people give us, because at times sometimes some of these issues that we run away from, we might also find that they can also be beneficial to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac, for your input. Hope we've all heard that expertise is the main thing and not age. So asante. Cindy. Okay.
Okay, I'm back. And
yes.
You've just requested me to speak on climate smart agriculture. And I think I'd like to start by giving an example of what we are doing in Ngong. What we are doing in Ngong is plastic culture using greenhouses, and you're using pumice instead of soil. So what we grow mainly is tomatoes, we have capsicum and herbs. So the reason why we decided to do pumice instead of soil is the soil area where we are in Ngong, the soil is full of fusarium. It has been tested and proven as so. So pumice really eliminates soil-borne diseases. Now you're left with perhaps pests and maybe biological related diseases. You eliminate soil and you cut down the cost of spending perhaps money on fertilizers. And I don't know what's happening to me. I just keep losing train of my thoughts.
Continue. You are just scared, but you have the right points. Hello, Cindy.
Allow me just post my notes on the group, please.
Sawa. But I know you have the right information. Maybe you're just scared or terrified, but We will await your notes or your research in our group, and possibly we can share it also on our website. However, I would like to take, I have a question for Frederick concerning integrated pest management. Having worked in the field, also just like majority of us, I know basically we have with integrated pest management, we have a short alternatives, or let me say we have minimal alternatives towards organic insecticides. I don't know how you see it, and what best in which manner can we best broaden the insecticide market, especially organic. The floor is yours, Fred.
Thank you so much, Roderick. And from organic pesticides, I think why not many farmers have been able to adopt and to be able to start using some of these organic pesticides is because the alternative is so cheap that they don't want to incur a lot of expenses in because some of the organic pesticides are more expensive compared to the normal synthetic, some of the normal conventional fertilizers that are used and pesticides. So I think it's just the cost implication part that most of the farmers have not been able to adopt or to use. They are a bit skeptical on using organic pesticides. But all in all, integrated pest management training that we went was by ICSSS. But in Kitui County, we mainly focused on the mango value chain, where it is because some of these fruits and products that we are planning to produce, and we are asking farmers to produce them with minimal or no use of the synthetics. I think, can you hear me? I think I'm losing you. Can you hear me, Roderick?
We can. Yes, we
Very
can.
well.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Very, very well. Very well. Fred? Hello, Fred. Okay. I've jinxed him.
However, I think he mentioned something really smart.
Yes.
We need to reduce that cost premium. I think that is the difference between why people adopt a certain technology, and do not. So that cost premium, if we could be able to find more solutions or more organic pesticides, then it means the cost will decrease, and also the cost premium will decrease.
I would also congratulate Cindy, because we've been talking over soil testing, and it's good that on their farm they are doing it, and they know that the quantities of minerals that are within their soil. I believe that's the way agriculture should be done. We need to be nutrient specific, not just doing the olden days agriculture whereby we know we just use DAP for planting, CAN for top dressing, yet we don't know the requirements of the soil. I believe soil has a major part to do in increasing yield, and we need to encourage more soil testing centers where farmers can easily know the nutrient requirements for their soils before they venture into various businesses, especially in agriculture. Okay.
Very true, and indeed, I still believe we have discussed many issues, and all these are great solutions to help us to reduce this food inflation, especially in regards to the farmers-centered solutions, and we should strive to achieve these solutions either by collaboration or by policy development, as Jemima is vast in that area. And I know together we can be able to help to mitigate future occurrences of food inflation.
Okay, is there any other question or any other comment? Okay, there are being no other comment or question. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for availing time for this webinar. Thank you for the research that you've done. It's vast. I tried bringing in different personalities, different opinions from different corners of this world. Actually, majority of these guys are experts in the agricultural field. They work in different organizations, both within the country and outside the country. And I believe this discussion has given us an insight into what global food inflation is doing to our own economies. I would like to end this discussion at this point, and maybe if either of you has something to say, I take the floor.
Yeah, I would just like to say, like, I'm really grateful to have been here because I really learned a lot, especially even learning about this, what do you call it, organic, whatever that Fred talked about. I wasn't like really so much aware about it. So that's something I'm going to read about further. So it's really been productive, and I really learned a lot. So I'm glad to have attended. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jemima. Any other person?
Okay, Roderick.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Zen, for those who don't know me, but actually I've specialized in the organic part. I think I have not been that late to attend the discussion. I had another meeting to attend to, but basically on the larger part, I think we should have to do much of mobilization of people to shift to organic farming, bearing the current costs of production, everything, the cost has gone up by far. And I think on a larger part, the use of this synthetic, like conventional production of agricultural commodities, it's a little bit costly. And that is what is spiking up a lot of, so maybe on the agricultural products, when you just consider that due to the increase in the production cost, that is what is mainly affecting the prices of agricultural products. So if we can do some bit of mobilization of people, or sensitizing and emphasizing on people to embark on organic production, I think it's way much cheaper producing organically as compared to the conventional methods, because bearing in mind on the other side, you're not only protecting, basing on what we are handling as agronomists, you're not only measuring in production of the agricultural products, but you also have to do some bit of environmental conservation. Yeah, so that's why I would emphasize more on the organic production.
Roderick, you're mute. Sorry.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you so much for your presentation, for your input. Any other person?
Yeah, this is Belinda one more time. If anyone in here knows anyone in Uganda, in Nigeria, in Kenya, who may be having a farmer network, but they do not have access to right mechanization, you can link me up with them, and we will work towards helping them get a tractor. Yeah.
Thank you, Belinda. Thank you. Back to you, Barbara.
Well, thank you all for attending. It was such a pleasure. Before I say my parting shot, maybe we can have Isaac. Isaac, you raised your
Isaac has
hand.
something I've seen. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry for cutting it short. And my reaction towards this webinar is that it has been very, very informative. It has been lively. We've learned a lot from each other. And going forward, this is an initiative that I'd love to continue even as time goes by. I don't know what arrangements you've put, Roderick.
Yes.
But yes, I felt that we really needed to extend this to the schools, more especially the primary and secondary schools. Recently, there was the revitalization or even the reintroduction of the 4K clubs, which was done by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I was thinking that maybe if we can partner with schools and educate the children on maybe issues to do with environmental conservation, food security, and also provide mentorship, more especially to the students who are really interested in carrying out agriculture. That's my shot. Thank you.
Thank you for your parting shot. Thank you.
That's perfect. That's something I'm usually thinking about as well. So that's a really good idea, Isaac. Love it.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your contribution, and I really look forward to continuing this conversation as we have reached that consensus. So maybe we try and partner with the schools and try and ask, especially this club, the club patrons, yeah. Yeah, and we could actually have a webinar with the kids. They don't need many laptops, maybe just a projector and and one laptop, and they can all engage, or rather we can all engage with them. And it will be so wonderful to nurture these young minds on going, the organic way, or enlightening them on the various ways they can tackle, especially the sector, which is agriculture in this case. So I look forward to that. I thank you all, our speakers, for availing yourselves, for preparing adequately. It was such a pleasure having you on board, as well as our very able moderator. Thank you so much for moderating your way through this conversation. I'm very grateful. Please, you can check out our website, ICSScenter.org. Also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We are all ICSS Center. So we look forward to continuing engaging with you and growing, as well as implementing these solutions that will better our world. So thank you, and good evening.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess you're
not free.
Yes.
Thank you, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.